Randall K. Bannon, PhD, first joined National Right to Life in 1989 as he served as Director of Education Department. Since 1994, he has tracked the latest scientific research and statistics on abortion and other life issues for the National Right to Life Endowment Trust Fund, which enables pro-life activists to better promote the cause and culture of life. Dr. O'Banion has researched and written on several critical pro-life issues, such as the activities and funding of Planned Parenthood, the nation's largest abortion chain, dangers and deaths associated with the abortion pill, RU4BG, and the worldwide spread of chemical abortifacients, the reasons why women have abortions, and on the accumulating evidence of abortion's post-effects. He has been interviewed by the national press on many of these subjects. He has also been responsible for the development of publications of a number of vital educational resources, ranging from the fact sheet and pamphlets to special inserts, such as The Choice I Made for the National Right to Life News. Many of those resources are available for download from the National Right to Life website. He also takes great pride in having had a hand in producing Baby's First Months, the Trust Fund's beautiful, full-colored physiology booklet, which dramatically depicts and describes the wonder of life before birth. Dr. O'Banion received his doctorate in philosophy ethics from Georgetown University in 1998. He and his wife, Sandy, live in Manassas, Virginia, with their lovely daughters, Kelly and Carrie, while their oldest daughter, Kathleen, studies at Calvin College in Grand Rapids. Please welcome Dr. O'Banion.
Thank you so much. I hope you'll give me a couple of seconds while I fire up the computer here. I am grateful to be back here in North Carolina. This is a wonderful state. You all have a wonderful organization. Barbara Holt, I've known her for a number of years, and you all have accomplished quite a lot. And I think it's due to her leadership and the fine work of all of you all. I am grateful to have my wife, Sandy, with me here. Her grandparents were from here, on her father's side from High Point, North Carolina, and she went to school at Wake Forest. So this is kind of one of our home states that we have. I also have my daughter Carrie with me, who is a junior in high school, and she is thinking about going to a dental school, and maybe down in here in North Carolina, so it may be another one of our home states again. All right, I'm very, as often happens, it seems that the Lord has orchestrated some of the details, and so some of my presentation is going to fit right in with some of the things we've been doing. We talked about preparing for what Planned Parenthood's doing. You'll see some of the things that we'll be talking about here. Planned Parenthood. But before we do, I want to just briefly share with you a couple of things. I didn't notice any problems in the bulletin, but I've noticed often that church bulletins have some very interesting kind of bloopers in them, and just where a word is slightly changed here or there, and they come out a lot different. So I thought I might come up with what I think might be the top 10 bulletin bloopers. For the children, it says, for those of you who have children and don't know it, we have a nursery downstairs. Another one of my favorites is, please welcome Pastor Don, a caring individual who loves hurting people. This is one of my favorites. Today's offertory music, Jesus paid it all. Another one here is, remember in prayer the many who are sick of our church and our community. Another one us, ladies, don't forget the rummage sale. It's a good chance to get rid of those things that are not worth keeping around the house. Bring your husbands. This one's kind of sad. Low self-esteem group, support group will meet Thursday at 7 to 8:30 p.m. Please use the back door. This is for the musical people. 8 new choir rooms are currently needed due to the addition of several new members and the deterioration of some older ones. I'm probably one of those older ones. Another one is, please remember to pray for our unloved saved ones. Think about it. Another one, Thursday night potluck supper, prayer and medication will follow. I've been to a couple of those potluck suppers. And finally, this is one of my favorites here. The peacemaking meeting scheduled for today has been canceled due to a conflict. I'm going to talk about it a little bit about a conflict, a very important conflict. It's a conflict of life and death. As you know, North Carolina Right Life stands for protecting innocent human life from conception to natural death, from abortion, embryonic stem cell research, human cloning, infanticide, euthanasia, assisted suicide. On the other hand, there's a group by the name of Planned Parenthood, which is the nation's largest promoter and provider of abortion. And this is a serious struggle. You all have been dealing with it for a number of years, and it has come to a head here in the most recent time. And I want to spend the time today talking about who Planned Parenthood is, so that you be prepared to know who exactly we are that we're dealing with, what we can do. You have to know who they are. It's very important. It says, when we're talking about the conflict of life and death, Deuteronomy 30, 18 to 20 says, this day I call the heavens and earth as a witness against you, as I've set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life that you and your children may live. It's very important when you're dealing with someone who is an opponent to know who they are, to know what they stand for, to know what they do, to know what their plans and their strategies are, determine what to do about it, how to deal with them. There are, in fact, 2 Planned Parenthood groups here in North Carolina. I understand that you know a lot of these things, I'm going to review some of that for people. For those of you that don't, I want you to be aware of the conditions, and we're going to sort of bring this all together so we understand precisely who Planned Parenthood is, what they're doing, and why this is such a challenge that has to be faced by the people of North Carolina. There are, in fact, 2 groups in North Carolina, Planned Parenthood Central North Carolina and Planned Parenthood Health Systems. Now, Planned Parenthood Central North Carolina covers the heart of North Carolina. They have centers in Chapel Hill, Durham, and Fayetteville. The ones with a little asterisk on them are the ones that have abortions. They do about 4,000 abortions in 2011. The revenues were about $4.5 million. Planned Parenthood Health Systems actually is a very large affiliate that covers parts of 4 states, the other parts of North Carolina, as well as South Carolina, Virginia, and West Virginia. They have centers in Asheville, Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, Wilmington, and Winston-Salem. And again, the last 2 are the ones that offer abortions. They do about 2,274 abortions in 2010, and the revenues were about $10.3 million. Just so you know, all the abortion centers there offer both chemical and surgical abortions. Chapel Hill, the clinic there, does surgical abortions up to 20 weeks. The Winston-Salem one does up to 16 weeks, and others do about 13.6 weeks or about the first trimester. All right, let's talk about who Planned Parenthood, the national organization, is. They bill themselves as the nation's leading sexual and reproductive health care provider and advocate. Never forget the word advocate is also thrown in there, so they are not only performing abortion, but they are promoting it. They have 79 affiliates and nearly 800 health centers. It's very interesting. It's very hard to actually get this nailed down. I looked on sources and found their website said that they had 82 affiliates. Their annual report said they had 88 affiliates. This is the most recent figure with 79 affiliates, about 800 health centers. We'll talk about why it is those affiliate numbers keep changing. They said they had about 3 million clients. They had sex ed. They offered to 1.2 million a year. They are, in fact, and have long been, the nation's leading abortion chain, performing 329,445 abortions in 2010. That means that they are responsible for a quarter of all abortions done in the United States each year. And they take in over $1 billion in revenues. They are a big, giant corporation, or sometimes I call them Abortion Inc. Now, they try to build themselves, as you know, being pro-choice. But I ask you this, looking at these statistics, abortions 329,445, prenatal services 31,000, infertility clients, and they don't even have this figure in their most recent annual report. This is facts from 2007, years ago, but they only had 318. Adoption referrals, which dropped last year again, 841. This is something they put in one of their documents several years ago. They said pro-choice means supporting all access to all reproductive options, whether it's motherhood, contraception, abortion, or adoption. I ask you, from looking at these, how much do they promote anything other than abortion? There's priorities. Let's look here. In 2010, abortions at Planned Parenthood outnumbered adoption referrals by a more than 395-to-1 ratio. For every adoption that they referred for, they didn't handle the adoption, but they sent them to someplace else to give the adoption, they offered 395 abortions. And that should tell you precisely what their priorities are. Planned Parenthood and pregnant women, if you were to just take the adoptions, prenatal care that they offer, and abortions, you'd find out that 9 in 10 of those are in fact going to receive abortions if they go into Planned Parenthood. Now, I should mention here, just for the record, is they've actually upped this number. They used to have prenatal clients, and apparently that number was so low that they decided they would go by prenatal visits. So if a person comes in for prenatal care once, comes for prenatal care and then comes in 3 or 4 times over the period of a pregnancy, that would actually mean that there's only one person, but she's going in there for 4 visits. And that was the way they inflated their number. But even with that inflation, it still shows up that they are by far promoting abortion way, 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 way more than they do any other options. And most centers do not offer prenatal care. Very few of them do adoption referrals, so you can see how that their priorities are what they are. It's interesting to look is that if you looked at the United States, in the United States, abortions have been dropping considerably since 1990. There were about 1.6 million abortions in that year, and they dropped to about 1.2 million as of the most recent figures, 2008. During that same period of time, though, you can see that abortions at Planned Parenthood have increased exponentially, starting from about 129,000 that they were doing in 1990. That was about 8% of the national total in that year, to now 329,445 in 2010. Now that's up to about 27.2% of the national total. So they have greatly increased their margin. Now, one thing that you'll find that them saying is that, you know, yeah, we do abortions, but that's such a small part of what we do, so please don't give us a hard time about it. You can see this comes from there's a fact sheet that's online, just updated this month, Planned Parenthood Services. What they do is they'll say 329,000 abortions out of 11 million total services provided, and if you do the math that way, you do in fact get 3.3%. But, this is very important, they count every condom, every packet of pills, every STD test as a uniquely rendered service. And why is that important? Because you see, it's a package deal. Most clients receive more than one service when they come into Planned Parenthood. With abortion, they may get a pregnancy test, an STD test, ultrasound, packet of contraceptives, connecting several of those non-abortion services to the abortion services, 3.3%. So if each pregnancy patient receives a pregnancy test, then all of a sudden it's 6.6% connected to abortion. If you add an STD test, another 2.9%, that should be 3.3%, equals a 9.9%. A packet of reversible contraceptives is what they call it, makes it up to about 13.2%. And then you get blood work, antibiotics, painkillers, and all of a sudden we're talking about real money. Another way of looking at it. Considered as a percentage of approximately 3 million clients, Planned Parenthood says that it says, instead of simply looking at the services, look at it as a portion of the clients, and it represents not 3%, but at least 10.9%, just looking at their numbers here. But Planned Parenthood has admitted on one of its own fact sheets that 12% of its clients receive abortions. Now, we don't know what the official percentage of Planned Parenthood's of Central North Carolina clients had abortions, but Planned Parenthood Health Services said that 6%, not 3% of its clients had abortions. So you can see that the figure is probably even higher for North Carolina. Is abortion behind other services? Pregnancy tests were obtained by more than a third of Planned Parenthood's approximately 3 million clients. The question is, why did they go to Planned Parenthood for their test? You can get your own pregnancy test at the drugstore for pretty cheap. So why would you go to Planned Parenthood? Prenatal services, adoption referrals are rare at Planned Parenthood. The question is, why did they go there? Are they looking for abortion and they are sold something else when the test comes back negative? So even some of the services that aren't connected to abortion may in fact be connected to abortion. But in terms of revenue, it's a much, much different story. A pregnancy test, standard test, about $15. A packet of birth control pills, about $15 to $50. A pack of condoms, $6. A first trimester surgical abortion is about $451, according to the most recent Guttmacher statement. Projected income from this would be the pregnancy test, about $16.7 million. The 2 million reversible contraception clients would be about $58 million. 140,000 reversible contraception clients for men, that equals about less than $1 million. But 445 abortions would equal $148.6 million. Now you compare that and you find out which is the most important product to Planned Parenthood in terms of revenue. $148.6 million would represent 36.7%, not 3%, of the $404.9 million Planned Parenthood received in health center revenues for the fiscal year ending in June of '09. Or, and they've changed the way they've counted their numbers, so it's harder to tell, or 46.4% of the $320.1 million Planned Parenthood received in what they termed non-government health services revenue for the fiscal year ending June of 2010. And I should note to you that this is assuming the cheapest version of abortion when we know that Planned Parenthood's clinics advertise and perform more expensive RU46 chemical abortions and later surgical abortions, which may be up to $1,000 at 20 weeks. Remember, they're right here in North Carolina at Chapel Hill, they're doing them up to 20 weeks. So you can see how that number is still probably way too low. Now, just to show you why that this is important, let's say that I was going to go to the store, and I told my wife, Sandy, I'm going to the store and I'm going to pick up a couple of items. And so I go there and I pick up a couple of packs of peanuts, maybe a 6-pack of soda, a newspaper, and then a sports car. Now, 2 packs of peanuts, that's about $2. 6 packs of cola, about $2.50. Maybe a newspaper, 75 cents, and a sports car. This is a Porsche Carrera GT. The list price is $440,000. And the total for my 10 items is $440,000 and $5.25. How do you think she'd react if I told her that why are you making such a big deal out of me buying this sports car? It was only 10% of my purchases. And that's what they're trying to tell you is that, oh, this is only 3% of our services. But how much money do they get from that services? And what does it represent as far as the amount of their bottom line that it's covering? And you can see it's an entirely different story when you look at it that way. Summing up, 3% of services counts all services equally, no matter how much or how little they cost. 11 to 12% of Planned Parenthood patients, people coming through the door, have abortions. They represent as much as 46% of Planned Parenthood's non-governmental clinic revenues. Due to the abortion-related services being a higher cost, the percentage of clinic revenues may be much higher. And this explains why abortion is so critical to Planned Parenthood's bottom line and mission. It's a huge part of their bottom line. Now, to tell you the truth, though, I think we need to understand this. It doesn't matter whether it's 46%, 12%, or 3%, that there is a business out there that makes killing innocent human beings any part of its business model is abominable. And so much worse. So I don't, even if they're killing one child, that's too many. It's so much worse is that they expect government to fund them with tax dollars. You and me, our money. To show you how committed they are to abortion, you can take a look at this. There's it was found out at the end of 2010 that Planned Parenthood has mandated that every affiliate that they have at least one abortion-performing clinic in the next 2 years. So we are running up on that right now. So even there are a couple of Planned Parenthood affiliates that were not offering abortion. They are saying that they now have to have at least one clinic in their affiliate area that is offering abortion because that is essential to their what they call standardization of services. Now, North Carolina has already reached that, but you can see this idea of promoting and pushing abortion is very much a part of the national organization's plans. Now, they will tell you that without Planned Parenthood, well, there'll be no preventive care, no breast exams, and all the rest, all these people, and ignoring the fact that there are other groups that perform these services that do not do abortions, that do not refer for abortions. Planned Parenthood does abortions, but not mammograms. They tell you over and over how they're taking it. If you go to Planned Parenthood, the breast exam will be probably a manual breast exam. If you're going to have a mammogram, which is a more serious sort of medical procedure, they're going to send you someplace else. So the idea that they're offering and doing these things, they're not really offering that much. They do offer abortion, however. Few Planned Parenthood clinics offer prenatal care and fertility treatment, proving once and for all that Planned Parenthood's plans typically don't include parenthood. Some of their other activities, just so you know, they talk about these other things they do. All right, let's talk about some of the other things they do. They have medical services, abortion, birth control, STD treatment, breast exams, prenatal care, and fertility, each of those decreasing as they go down as far as their prevalence. They also talk about sex education. $42 million of their budget was spent on sex education in the schools, and they have one thing they have to do a lot of called peer education, where they'll bring in high school kids, they'll train them, and then they'll go out there to sort of reach their other high school kids that are out there. Services to affiliates, certification and standardization, that's when they will identify certain clinics as being up to standard or not up to standard, requiring that they begin to offer abortions in order to continue on. Website referrals, a lot of these women come through the different websites. Services to the field of family planning, some of the things they did with some of that money in the past have been improved medication abortion service delivery. In other words, they were promoting RE46, the chemical abortions at those locations. International family planning programs, that's where they spend some money overseas. They say developing safe abortion protocols, promoting abortion in other countries. Management in general, that's their big salaries, and you'd be surprised how many of their management make in the six figures. Fundraising, $48 million. That's a lot of money spent on fundraising. Public policy, just so you know that it's not just that they're offering abortion, they are promoting this cause throughout in the state and in the federal legislatures. They mentioned in the past, they're lobbying on Obamacare, partial birth abortion, their funding, Supreme Court appointments, and so forth. And they also have invest a lot of money in challenging pro-life legislation. As you know, they're putting money here to fight anything you've passed. They do it, a lot of money. It's a very big part of what they do. So the idea that, oh, well, they're just a health care organization, no, don't forget at the very beginning they talked about advocacy was an essential part of who they are and what they do. In the Tar Heel State, just to be aware, they mentioned how that in their annual reports that the two groups came together. They did volunteer phone banks. contacting Governor Perdue and the legislators. They paid phone banks to target legislators. They sent 20,000 emails on the Planned Parenthood ban, abortion, and other what they call anti-choice bills. Sent nearly 16,000 pieces of mail to constituents. They delivered 17,000 petition signatures. They had rallies. They had letters to the editor, newspaper editorials. Some things that specifically Planned Parenthood Central North Carolina did, they talked about their peer educator program. They had the Teens in Raleigh for Adolescent Health Advocacy Day, birth control class in public schools, reaching more than 6,000 a month via their website. They mentioned that they doubled their Facebook likes. They picked up 21,000 new supporters, and they said that their appointments doubled at the previous year at their new Fayetteville clinic, I believe, once they had started that up. In the annual report from 2010 and Health Services, they mentioned subsidies and cost reductions for abortion patients, Teens Taking Action program, expanded provision of sex ed to public schools, passage health care reform, strategies to overcome a more hostile political landscape in 2011. That was after they lost a lot in the election. Challenged local municipalities not to drop abortion coverage through employee health plans. You guys have already dealt with some of that here. They now have admitted, once they have recalculated their numbers, now that they're under congressional investigation, that nearly half of their revenues come from government health services and contracts. Federal funding, there are in fact limits on federal funding because of the Hyde Amendment, which ruled that it's only to be allowed in the situation of life or health of the mother or rape or incest. One person calculated, expert calculated, that we could be funding for as many as 675,000 abortions a year if that amendment hadn't been passed. But when they pay for other services, the family planning or whatever, they can still help pay for salaries, rent, equipment, and thus help keep the clinic doors open. Even when the dollars are designated for non-abortion activities, covering those expenses allows Planned Parenthood to put more money towards abortion provision and promotion. Those non-abortion funds keep the salaries paid, cover rent and utilities, keep the clinics open, and this is also important, helps cement the authority, reputation, and sales position of Planned Parenthood. That money they get helps them to keep their name out there and keep their reputation up. Funding matters. Just to let you look at this, this is a sort of corollary. It shows you that government grants and contracts and abortions, if you were to just track the rise of them, they very nearly parallel each other, and that should show you how it matters. Even when that money is supposedly not going towards abortion, you can see as they receive that money, it sure seems that abortions go up. State funding, we don't know exactly how much this money is goes to Planned Parenthood clinics, but we know that there are several states that do in fact fund abortion, so it's not just a matter of federal funds, but states do it to the tune of several hundred thousand a year. Thankfully, North Carolina is not on that, but you also see how that there are also localities that fund abortion. I won't mention them here, but there's one community in Texas that funded about 600 and something abortions. So it's not just the federal, it's not just the state, but it's even local. So you have to keep your eyes open at all those different levels. There have been efforts to fund it at the federal level, and I will just, that was where we voted in Congress. It was defeated once it went to the Senate because the Democratic-controlled Senate helped to stop that. But there have also been things in the states, in New Jersey, Indiana, Kansas, Tennessee, Texas, Wisconsin, and of course here in North Carolina. Now, as you know, as has happened in most all these states, Planned Parenthood fights back fiercely. And so even when you pass it, they will challenge it in court, and it's very difficult to get through, but it's just a process that has to start, and it takes some time. You have to keep at it. You have to know what's going on with Planned Parenthood to be able to challenge it. More money means, as you know, greater ability to attract customers, more funds available for better facilities, more money for retraining staff, updating equipment, for public appearances and advertising, higher name recognition, and tacit government endorsement of the organization activities. That's what happens when that money goes to them. Now, the idea is that so in the last couple of years, they've been their state funds being cut or challenged. Abortions have been down in the United States, and in just the last year, only the last year, abortions revenues were slightly down, just by hair, at Planned Parenthood. There have been clinics that have been closing. Maybe you've read about some of them, affiliates that are disappearing, and they at one time had over 100-something affiliates. Now they're down to 79. Does that mean they're on the verge of shutting their doors? Hardly. So what is going on at Planned Parenthood? There's a lot of activity. Clinic closings, there are at least 30 clinics that closed. Some of those were relocation, though. More than a dozen affiliate mergers announced in the last couple of years. New clinics, at least 28 to 29 new clinics, 17 of those to be at least 10,000 square feet or more. I want you to understand what this means. For example, in the mergers, the bigger, more powerful, more aggressive, more profitable affiliates gobble up those that are smaller, weaker, poorly managed, and unprofitable. That's exactly why, for example, the Virginia affiliate, which had existed, was gobbled up by Planned Parenthood Health Systems in North Carolina because they're a bigger, more stronger affiliate, and they have now combined those. But so you see that happening even around here. Reduced middle management, they are more efficient, bigger budget to expand, put in strategic locations, more political clout, and they add abortions, more centers, more services, and more abortions. This is the one that opened my eyes. There was in August 2007, we found out that Planned Parenthood was building a $7.5 million, 22,000 square foot mega clinic in rural Illinois, waiting room seating 65, 4 surgical rooms, 13 private recovery rooms, call center with 5 operators, 15,000 calls per month. Birthing center obstetrics? No, there isn't one, but there's all this, definitely a location where they can do a huge number of abortions, process them quickly, and a lot at one time. It was built under another name, and they were challenged in court, but they managed to get it opened in October 2007. After I saw that, I began to check and see other things going on. They closed an express clinic in the area. They announced the merger of the 5 Illinois affiliates right after that happened. They closed the Lincoln Clinic and others. They dismissed their regional CEOs. They said it was about cost-cutting and modernization. The guy who was responsible for building that new giant mega clinic in Aurora, Illinois, was promoted and became the CEO of the entire affiliate for Illinois. And they had RU46, their clinic in Springfield. And I began to look, and I began to notice there was a pattern. This wasn't the only place that something like this was happening with other medical clinics, mergers, and closings. What do they mean? There's aggressive corporate restructuring going on at Planned Parenthood. They're pruning non-performing clinics and affiliates, reducing expensive, unproductive middle management, dealing with government funding cuts, moving into wealthier suburbia, and maximizing the more profitable aspects of their business. What are the most profitable aspects of their business? What do we tell you again? Abortion is the big moneymaker. They're going to maximize that. After opening the Aurora Mega Clinic, abortions increased in Illinois, not just there in the whole state, but especially around the area surrounding Aurora. I'm just going to mention, you see how that they built these mega clinics all over the place? These are, I simply make a thing, anything more than 10,000 square feet. There's plenty in California, Texas, New York, Sarasota, Florida, Oregon, Colorado, Illinois. Again, New York, Massachusetts, Texas, Tennessee, Minnesota, Oregon, Nebraska, and you can see that Fayetteville, North Carolina is one of the ones on there, August 2009. In Portland, a place I visited, I saw how they took an empty lot, built it into this giant new mega clinic. They said they outgrew their previous facility. They got funds to say they're revitalizing their community. They're offering RU46 abortions, 42,000 square feet, $12.5 million facility, including some money from tax credits, 10 exam rooms, 4 counseling rooms, place for candidate forums, phone banks, community activism. They had a festive grand opening with female drummers, ministers, politicians, city commissioners, and Planned Parenthood President Cecile Richards. They mentioned that in the article, a contemporary fun and lively look with a new color palette that includes pink, orange, and teal. Something very interesting I noticed, and I saw this for myself when I read about it, they're going after 2 different demographics. And why is this important? Because Planned Parenthood for a long time is concentrated in some of the poorer communities and reaching on one. They are now trying to branch out with these giant new mega centers to reach 2 different groups. And that's why they're going after both the upscale, wealthy suburbanite, which means they can charge them more, new building, modern furnishing, easy access, full parking, a back entrance, closer to more affluent neighborhood, hip upscale marketing. They have Sexy Tuesdays happy hour, but also at the same time, a minority poor community. It straddles this community here. There's a minority neighborhood, a major bus line. They do a lot of advertising, Medicaid, sliding scale, state funding for uninsured. Minorities represented 26.5% of the population in the United States in 2000, but accounted for 51.8% of the abortion. That's one reason why they do that. In Houston, they built the world's largest Planned Parenthood clinic, 78,000 square feet, 6 floors, an entire floor for abortion and vasectomies, room for 200 employees, and they have conference and training rooms. Here is a picture of their large area waiting room in designer colors and hues. It looks very warm and inviting. They built one in, what they've done in Minnesota is they got one of 46,000 square foot going in St. Paul, Minnesota. There is actually only one abortion clinic, Planned Parenthood clinic in Minnesota, but what's very interesting, if you take a look at the map, you can put St. Paul in the middle, and then you can look and see how all the other ones are all around it, like a satellite. And this is the big place where they all get filtered in. Built close to the University of Minnesota. It's near a growing ethnic neighborhood, near a planned light rail line. Replaces their existing clinic, and they fund abortion in that state. What do they get for their money? A new image, greater capacity, more modern facilities, controlled access, public access, additional meeting space, administrative space, marketing space, space for political activity, and lots of publicity. Why do they have those extra footage of rooms, meeting rooms and phone rooms? It's very interesting. Available candidate forms and phone banks. Political buttons are sold next to the condoms that mentioned in one article. And invitation to activism in the magazine rack. Okay. There are two Planned Parenthoods you should know, not just the Planned Parenthood of Federation of America, but also the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, which is one of the biggest spenders in the last election. This is Planned Parenthood's director. Her name is Cecile Richards. She does not have a medical background. She's in fact the daughter of the former Texas Governor Ann Richards, if you remember. Political connections. She has political experience. She worked in Nancy Pelosi's office before she worked with Planned Parenthood. She heads both of the organizations. This is something she said, just to let you know of how she looks at her job. She said, talking about that they had 860 health centers in 50 states. She said, we have the potential to swing the vote in 2006, 2008, 2010. This is older. She said, and that's a lot of power. The question is, what are we going to do with it? We're going to use it. We're going to marry our current reality is the largest reproductive health care provider in the country and the opportunity to be the largest advocacy organization in the country. We're taking on the opponents of choice in the states and districts where they live. Planned Parenthood's going to become more politicized, so that health care become less politicized. She noted this, and don't forget this. Richards noted that Planned Parenthood had more members, employees, and staff than the 50 state Democratic parties combined. They endorsed John Kerry, spent about $3 to $4 million on political activity, knocked on doors, made phone calls, literature, identifying to get sympathetic voters to polls, 20,000 new voters in Oregon, and blamed Kerry's loss on his failure to articulate position on abortion and family planning well. I'm going to skip this because we don't have time, but this is a speech by Cecile Richards making pretty much the same claims about how they're going to do it in the future elections. They endorsed Barack Obama. They planned to spend $10 million, and they had a $1 million campaign. They are in it to win it. This is their latest, the Planned Parenthood Action Center. Priority is women must have access to safe, legal abortion services without interference from the government. They fight anti-choice efforts at every level, courthouses, the state house, the Capitol Hill, the grassroots. They said the reason that they lost the elections in 2010 was that these candidates were not bold enough in proclaiming their pro-abortion credentials, and if they had done, they said they would have won. That's why they said they lost the last elections. They've launched a new website called Women Are Watching. They have these activities in North Carolina too. I won't go into this, but you can see how that they have their action funds, these separate political groups for both the Planned Parenthood health systems and for Planned Parenthood Central North Carolina. They are doing a lot of these things, but they still want more. Common thing that binds all these strategies together, these changes, are Planned Parenthood's rabid, non-negotiable commitment to abortion. Abortion is a big moneymaker. It's behind the abortion mandate. The ones that offer abortion are more profitable than those that don't. It's difficult to support staff, keep clinics open on cheaper contraceptives alone. It's a part of the brand name, the customer expectation, they say. It's behind the push for mergers and mega clinics, behind efforts to defend government funding, behind the push to add chemical abortions to standard clinic services, and behind the push for webcam abortions. What are webcam abortions? Let's just talk briefly about chemical abortions. Why do they do this? With the RE46, there's a novelty to them, a new product, a new image that attracts customers. There's no special equipment. You don't have to have the surgical abortion equipment and all the rest. It makes it easier for them to put it anywhere with anybody. They don't necessarily have to have a doctor. It's supposed to be under a doctor's supervision, but as long as the person who signs the prescription is somewhere, is a doctor, even if that's in a county, several counties away, it's officially still under the doctor's supervision. Easier to add to services. It's less mess for the clinic because the abortion doesn't take place there. It can actually take place in the woman's bathroom at home. easier money. It's a way to make a lot of money real quick. But you can see this that very much as a model. You have this big giant mega clinic in the middle. You have a doctor there who is at the other end of the camera, and then you have all these different other centers out there that begin offering abortion by the webcam. And it can not only, first of all, it's not only sort of your clinics. You saw there's a couple of clinics here in North Carolina that don't do abortions at the current time. Don't be surprised if quickly they'll begin offering the chemical abortions there, and that they may do it by webcam, they may not. But then again, they can also even take smaller locations, just a little storefront somewhere, and with this whole sort of system, they can begin to offer chemical abortions. You say, okay, I'm not in a big city, so I'm safe from Planned Parenthood. Not necessarily anymore. With the webcam thing, it can come to any small location, and all they've got to do is set up a storefront, and they can begin to do that. So it's something to be watching for. Planned Parenthood is the nation's largest abortion chain, the most powerful abortion lobby, abortion's defender in the highest courts, a major political force to be reckoned with, an aggressive billion-dollar-a-year corporation, a corporation's strategic plan to expand abortion access across the country. What they say, though, is very interesting. They call themselves the Name Women Trust. And this is hardly can be some of the trust. They are hip, trendy, and vibrant. They talk about freedom, but all they offer is bondage. They talk about choice, but it's very interesting how that they are opposed to even the sort of basic sort of information that enables women to understand what it is that's happening with abortion. Talking about standing up for women's lives, all the while forgetting the at least 50% of those babies they're aborting are in fact female. They aren't standing up for those lives that are being aborted. They talk about a passion for caring and for confronting inhumane acts. They say they believe in acting courageously, especially as allies for those who have little or no voice or little or no power. To me, that perfectly describes the unborn. And the idea is that they don't even have it. I don't think they even understand that. What do we do to do this? We have to stand up against it. Edmund Burke has said, all this necessary for the triumph of evil is for that good men do nothing. So we have to use something. They use lies, spin, manipulation, and raw political power. Now, they portray us as extremists, but we are the ones who eschew violence of any kind. They're the ones who believe in violence, not us. But we have to do something. In 2 Corinthians 10:4, it says, the weapons we fight with are not carnal, or not weapons of this world. What are our weapons? We talk about things like having the belt of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the gospel of peace, the shield of faith, the helmet of salvation, the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And each of these are very powerful weapons that we can have. You can see how that when we speak truth, the lies have to fade because the truth will stand for itself. When we stand with righteousness, it will prevail. When we offer peace in the midst of all the strife, faith, salvation, and in fact, it's the strength of the Word of God. John 8:32 says, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So what do? We seek the truth. We inform ourselves about abortion and the unborn child, abortion's effect on women, about the women who abort, and about Planned Parenthood's actions, its missions, and its strategy. We speak the truth to our family, to our friends, to our church and in our community. We educate ourselves and our neighbors. We stand for truth. That means that we march, that we engage our leaders, that we vote, we support pro-life candidates with our activity, with our dollars. We get involved. Some of these people like the state legislators who've been here, who come up and they stand for election. They get out there, they make the case. We stand with those people. That makes a huge difference. We live the truth. And we see that when we make tough pro-life choices and we help others do the same. We volunteer at our local CPC. We have the programs like Rather and Fozard's Learn program that are out there really helping these women where they are. And we support young women in our community, especially single mothers, offer help, education, and role models. The power of love, our weapons, it talks about, for example, Matthew 5:43. It says, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, just like we were doing a few minutes ago, that you may be children of the Father in heaven. So we understand that we operate on the basis of love. We know that 2 Peter 3:9 says that God is not willing that any should perish, but that all should come to repentance. We love for the unborn child. We know we recognize the humanity. We stand for that child. We love for the moms who go through this. The pro-life movement is full of women who've actually gone through the horror of abortion and have now come out and understand how awful it is and stand for it. We love for our co-laborers, the people that work with us. We love for the political opposition. That makes a difference. We love the lost people at Planned Parenthood even. We pray for them. We make a difference. And we see what prayer, love, and work can do. For example, here's Ramona Trevino, who is a clinic manager at Sherman, Texas. She's now come over to the pro-life side. We also see Abby Johnson, for 8 years, the Planned Parenthood Clinic Director of Bryan, Texas, who now comes and makes the case for the unborn on behalf of this. Prayer and love do make a difference. I want you to know that the one who is the way, the truth, and the life, things that we all stand for, will triumph. It will triumph to the end. And I want you to understand that this is very difficult. There's trouble there out there. Planned Parenthood, they offer trouble. They offer death. But we know that life is the cause that is on the side of the one who is the author of life, who is the protector of life, who stands for the way, the truth, and life, and we will triumph in the end. As long as you all keep working, it will make a difference, and we can challenge and we can beat a foe like Planned Parenthood. Thank you very much.